Auburn staying home. They get to play in Birmingham as the Auburn Tigers are the 9 seed, taking on 8-seeded Iowa. How fun is that, Darrell? The Tigers get to play just 2 hours away from Auburn.
Well, it's exciting. I was kind of hoping for that. That's a great draw for Auburn. Number one, Iowa's a good matchup for Auburn. I've watched them play a lot in the Big Ten. They got hot late, but I think that's a really good matchup for Auburn. And then the fact that you're just right down the road, that's incredible. And I think that's as good as Auburn could have hoped for, to get the 9 seed, to be able to play Iowa in the first round and to play in Birmingham is really big, because Auburn will travel. I mean, we know that Auburn Nation will be out in full force. That's going to be really, really pro-Auburn, that crowd.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be a really, really fun home environment. I mean, there's no question about it. The downside is if you win, you've got to play a very good Houston team. We'll talk about them in a second. But I just think the fact that you're playing Thursday and the fact that you're playing just 2 hours away from home, I mean, there's going to be so many Auburn fans that are just going to do a day trip out of all of this. I mean, that's just a big, big, big deal.
It is. I mean, the NCAA selection committee did Auburn a favor. I'm not saying they handed out candy, but I'm saying that typically Auburn's used to that woe is me, we're not going to get something's going to happen. It's going to be bad. And this is a good scenario for Auburn. And I know Houston's a very good basketball team who, last I checked on my way here to my office to do this, was getting smoked by Memphis. I don't know what the final score ended up being. I assume they lost. That guard for Memphis that absolutely killed us had a great game against Houston, Davis. But, Houston's a good basketball team. But are they unbeatable on a neutral floor? No. I mean, they're not. And they play in a conference that's a mid-major. It's amazing how the football equation in the college football playoff compared to the NCAA basketball tournament, you'd never see a group of 5 being in the top 4 or being a number 1 or number 2 overall seed. But here we are in March Madness in Houston, who's a mid-major, albeit a very good basketball team. They deserve that number 1 seed. But they are beatable on a neutral floor on the right night if Auburn can play at the level they did for 35 minutes against Alabama and how they played against Tennessee. We just don't know which team we're going to get, but that's what makes this so exciting in March, because you get out of conference where teams know your tendencies, and now you play somebody that doesn't know you.
And I think just the state of this team being battle tested, like, I think there's going to be a few of SEC teams that you kind of look at and you're like, they were okay during the regular season. I think a few of these are going to be able to go on a little bit of a run here. Maybe Auburn's one of them. Auburn is a 9. That surprised you a little bit? I spent all day looking at all the 10-7 matchups. I really thought Auburn was going to be a 10 seed.
I did too. A lot of the predictions and a lot of the things. That's why I've said all along, people get really, really wrapped up in Joe Lunardi. I'm not, and I'm just going to be honest and transparent when I say this, is that people equate Joe Lunardi to the NCAA selection committee. And when Lunardi had Auburn as the first or the last 4 in, or not the last 4, but the first 4 buys, or, on the bubble as maybe a play-in, I kept saying, don't pay attention to that. Lunardi's not the committee. And when Lunardi's bracket came out and the reveal of the first 16 came out a month ago, they were not similar. So Lunardi kind of locked in Auburn as the 10 seed all along to play Northwestern, when Jerry Palm, who turned out to be more accurate, had Auburn as the 9 seed, and even had Auburn playing Iowa. Because when me and you were off camera and Iowa was announced as the 8, I'm like, I don't know. Everything
you said, I want it. I want 9, and then it popped up. You're right.
So that's the thing, is that it's all a crapshoot. Nobody knows, but I mean, there was that bracket matrix that runs through a ton of different scenarios. This is amazing. If you go back and look at this thing right before the tournament started, the highest percentage, they run 47 different bracket possibilities, Zach. Okay, right. So all across the board. The highest percentage Auburn landed on, picture like the big Wheel of Fortune, roulette wheel, but without Vanna White. The highest percentage was Auburn, a 9 seed, and the highest percentage as to where they were going to play was Birmingham. So, I mean, that bracket matrix, as we go into next year, and Auburn's fighting for that number 1 seed, hopefully, that's the bracketology to look at, the bracket matrix, because they do a sample size of 47, and it's pretty stinking accurate.
Yeah, I mean, clearly, which is great. This Selection Sunday reaction show brought to you by our friends at Henry Service Company. We've talked about our great partnership with them all year long. If you're in the Montgomery Tri-County area, give them a call, 334-288-2700. Alabama license number 00021. More on them in a few minutes. So the matchup with Iowa, I mean, this Iowa team, I think it's kind of similar to Auburn. Just the little bit I've been able to watch Iowa this year, it seems like at times they wonder where their offense is going to come from. Solid defense when they want to play defense. And there's just a lot of other teams in their conference that have been better than them, but like they're a solid team. I think there's a lot of similarity between Auburn and Iowa.
There is. I actually watched a couple of Iowa's games. I have a relative who's from Iowa and likes Iowa, so I kind of started watching them as a courtesy if I was over his house and that kind of thing. And then one Saturday, I can't remember the game. People in the chat can help us out. It was the most incredible comeback that I've seen in college basketball this year. Everybody knows what I'm talking about.
Oh, I remember that.
I can't remember if it was Indiana, but I mean, I think Iowa was down 8 with 23 seconds to go.
Yeah. And
hit like 3 threes. I actually got it into overtime and then just smoked whoever in overtime. They were just on such a high. But it was the game that their idiot coach was so mad, and he walked over to the sidelines and got in a staring contest like he was 3 with an official.
I remember that.
Viral. Yeah. And the official did a great job of just kind of walking away. But then after that, his team goes on a run and they win. And, it was an incredible game. But they are so capable of getting hot from behind the 3-point line in the games I've watched them play that if they're not a team that shoots the 3 well, and we got somebody that said it was Michigan State who they played that happened to. If they don't shoot the 3 well, Zach, meaning not 45% or not, they are absolutely very beatable. They struggle. But when they shoot the 3, McCaffrey, who is the coach's son, he can light it up. There's another kid, number 20, who's a guard who can light it up. When they're shooting the 3, they are deadly and they're dangerous. But if they're not, and they're not hitting their 3s, they're very average.
All right, so I don't know. I'm just seeing a lot of these national folks shocked that Auburn's a 9 seed.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they are. I'm sure
I think lots of people upset that Auburn's a 9 seed, which obviously makes me happy. All right, let's go to some of the replies here. BB Groover says we got such a good spot. I agree. I agree with that.
Interesting. Is it going to be? Just so I know, because I wasn't watching it, you were kind of doing you were my eyes and ears. I assume Alabama's in the Birmingham region as well.
They are, yeah. Okay. They're in the different part of the bracket, obviously.
But they're there. So I mean, it's going to be interesting, isn't it?
It's going to be wild.
A bunch of Auburn and Alabama fans at the same site for the NCAA tournament. I don't know if that's ever happened. I mean, I just don't know that. I'm being. I'm ignorance here. Has Auburn and Alabama ever been in the same city in the first round of the NCAA tournament, which is going to make it very, very interesting?
I can't imagine so. I mean, that's pretty remarkable, really, when you think about it. And the fact that it's Birmingham, too. That's like they're going to Atlanta or Nashville or Charlotte or Greensville. They're in Birmingham. That's awesome. JM says Houston has some injuries too, so not a super tough draw. I'm not ready to say that they're not. I mean, I think they're a good team.
Number one.
Let's don't downplay Houston here. Like, Houston's a good team, but we got to beat Iowa first.
You got to beat Iowa, and then you just hope to see what happens, obviously, on a neutral floor. But, just take care of, that an 8-9 matchup is exactly that. It's a pick-em in most cases. I mean, you're evenly matched. That's why they put you 8 and 9. And so anything can happen. Again, we have some comments of people talking about Iowa can shoot lights out. They can, but not always. I mean, they live and die with the three ball. And I don't have access to pull up Iowa's record, but I could guarantee you if you go back through, pull up their record, look at the games they lost, and look at shooting percentages, it would be safe to say that they were under 35% shooting the three ball in their losses, and they were scorching over 40% in their wins. So you better extend.
Yeah.
I mean, and Bruce Pearl, I'm sure, will have, a defense drawn up where you've got to extend. You can't stay soft in that zone that like Auburn played against Arkansas where they packed it in. You better go out and guard. But I like our guards defending the three ball, Zach, much better than I like our guards defending a bigger guard off the dribble.
No question.
That's where this matchup. Now, if they're stroking their threes, nothing you can do about it. You tip your hat, you move on if they shoot 50%. But it's much better than going guys that like to go to the rim and attack the basket on our 5'11 guards.
Foul trouble has been such an issue. Like, it's much easier if you're going to attack Auburn via the three, for Auburn to like not be in foul trouble by halftime. So sure. I think that's an element as well. So Iowa is 19-13 on the season. They're tied for fifth in the Big Ten. So they went 11-9 in the Big Ten. On KenPom, Iowa is 37th. For comparison, Auburn is 29th in KenPom. And then when looking at the net, Iowa's 39th and Auburn is 32.
You can make the argument that Auburn could have been the 8 seed and Iowa could have been the 9 seed with those numbers, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah.
I mean, Auburn was lower in the KenPom and lower in the net, and lower being a good thing, and was the lower seed. So, look, this is an evenly matched. One team's got 19 wins, one team's got 20 wins. The difference is the selection committee and most national pundits are a lot higher on the Big Ten than they are the SEC. So you get really good points for finishing fifth in what they consider to be a stacked Big Ten, as opposed to finishing seventh in the SEC. And that's why I think Auburn is the 9 and Iowa's the 8.
Yeah.
Which it doesn't matter. It's uniform colors at this point. I mean, you're in Birmingham. Iowa has to go to Birmingham, so Auburn actually gets a benefit of a higher seed in that scenario.
Yeah, that would be fun. James saying, man, wouldn't it be funny if Bama and Auburn met in the Elite Eight? They're on different parts of the bracket. So the only way they could meet is in the national championship.
Arizona and Alabama would meet in the Elite Eight, and you get your popcorn ready. That'd be a good basketball game.
Yep. James, the way the tournament's set up is each like site has multiple like little tournaments, but it doesn't mean like all of them are going to play each other eventually. They're on different parts of the bracket. It's all over the place. Let's see.
Go to Gene Harper's comment if you can about 5-Up. I think this is interesting just because we've played them twice. Very similar style of play to Bama. We have experience playing and guarding teams like that. Will be a test of our basketball IQ. Okay, let me just say this. Similar in the fact that they fall in love with the three, but they are not near as athletic as Bama and not as near attack the rim. Is that Alabama can go downhill on you if they need to, besides hit the three, and are very athletic, have athletic bigs. Iowa, not so much.
I can't believe we're going to Birmingham, Darrell. I just can't believe it. That's so fun.
Telling you, I'm not surprised, only because these predictors have been, again, bracket matrix, there was like all these scenarios. Des Moines, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, my Yankee self, Des Moines and
I think Birmingham
right. Were both four. That's like the scenarios the most. They were tied the most, those two, as far as what region. And then Sacramento was in there, Denver was in there, but the one that came up the most on the roulette wheel was Birmingham, tied with Des Moines. And I just didn't see Auburn getting sent, to Des Moines. That's where Iowa could have said, why are we in Des Moines? We're the 8th seed. So listen, when you go to bed tonight and hit your knees, be thankful, because Auburn got some respect tonight and got a favor done. And so
it always seems like we normally have to go out west every time we play in the tournament.
Oh, San Diego,
Yeah.
I'm surprised we haven't had to play. You talk about going out west. I'm surprised we haven't played in the far west the way we feel like sometimes people treat us. But, Seattle. I remember Auburn playing in Long Beach because, I I was following that game closely back in 1986, being a young buck, senior in high school. I was like, why is this Auburn team from Alabama all the way here in Long Beach? And Arizona was the lower seed, and they shipped Auburn with Chuck Person and that group out to Long Beach. So I don't know. They got a break. It's a great opportunity. And I'm just going to say this. I know that, people probably are going to be looking at this situation and how to purchase tickets and all that kind of stuff. If you are an Auburn basketball fan, even regardless if you're disappointed in this year or how things turned out, get your butts to Birmingham and support this basketball team. You do not have an opportunity that often in life to go watch your favorite college basketball team an hour and a half down the road. Life is short. Go. They need you. And then
I'm already seeing notes that the BJCC sold out. So you're going to have to go.
But I mean,
you're going to have to go to the secondary market.
And go do it because you don't get to do this that often. It comes around once in a while. Take advantage. And then if they win Thursday, again, in a favorable matchup, an even matchup, I'm not predicting a victory. I'm just saying it's a good matchup. Then you can stay and see another game Saturday against more than likely a number 1 seed. So
That's right. Hey, and this show is brought to you by Henry Service Company, as every bit of basketball content this season has been here on Locked On Auburn. They cover everything, can help you fix anything, whether it's electrical, plumbing, HVAC, doesn't matter what it is. They've got you covered. All you have to do is give them a call, 334-288-2700, Alabama license number 00021. War Eagle Wyoming pointing out, Iowa leads the Big Ten in points per game at 80. They shoot 45% from the field and 34% from 3. I'm telling you right now, if they do that on Thursday, they will beat Auburn by 10 points.
Maybe. I don't know. The 34% from 3 I take right now. If you told me that team, I've watched them shoot like 50% in games. And that's why that's an average. That's an average, obviously, 34%. Look at what they shot when they lost. Look at what they shot when they won. If they shoot under 35%, which 34% is, I like Auburn's chances. I don't like Auburn's chances if they get to 80. I think Auburn's got to hold them in the low 70s.
Mm-hmm. How many points would you give Auburn for it being in Birmingham?
Like a home court advantage, 6.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think if this game is played in Sacramento, it's based upon that, Sacramento to Birmingham, I think you're talking about a +6 there in point differential for Auburn.
So you think Auburn's going to be favored when lines come out?
Yeah, I do.
I mean, 6 points, it'd have to be.
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking about I give them like what their normal scoring average is.
Mm-hmm.
I would take more of a snapshot or a composite of what Auburn averages points per game at home as opposed to the road. And I mean, you can't go straight up. Home court is still home court, but I'd shave a little off that. And I would say, I don't know what the point differential is between Auburn on the road and home. It'd be interesting to see what they average at home as opposed to what they average on the road. But somewhere in the middle there is what I would say, even on the high end for Birmingham.
So they gave Memphis an 8 seed, a team that really kind of took it to us. And they're in the same matchup we are, just in a different part of the bracket.
Yeah.
And they got to go to Columbus, Ohio. So, yeah. I mean, they're in a worse situation. I think Auburn. Now, they're playing Florida Atlantic. I think it's definitely an easier draw, but I don't know.
Well, and they also, just won their conference. I mean, Memphis just won their conference. I mean, that's why I don't think.
I don't think they look at the stuff.
Maybe Memphis was a 9 before they won their conference. They won the conference, and they said, we're bumping you up a seed line. That seems feasible because I saw that same bracket matrix all the way across the board up until today had Memphis as a 10. So they probably got a couple extra seed lines for knocking off Houston.
Yeah. I just can't believe like this quote unquote bad season that Auburn people are so insistent that how bad and awful this season was. You ended as a 9 seed and you get to go watch this team play an hour and a half to 2 hours away from your home. I just can't get over that, Darrell. I mean, all year we've been having to defend this team And all of a sudden, it's like they're in a really solid situation to get an opening round win.
I want people to go back and remember for some of the olds.
Kentucky's a 6, Darrell.
Yeah, I figured that. I figured that was going to be. I mean, we'll go through. We need to go through before we get off the air the SEC, all the SEC teams. But I can remember when in the 80s when Auburn would get a 10 seed or a 9 seed or an 11 seed and then get to the Sweet 16 or the Elite 8. I mean, they did with Sonny Smith.
Yeah.
And then the year 2003 that they got to the Sweet 16, they were a 10 seed with Marquise Daniels. And I know I keep going back to that, but this is for point of reference for what now. And then there were years, the year that Clemson smoked Auburn in the second round, I think Auburn was a 3.
Yeah, that was a rough game.
So, you just never know. I do know this, that Auburn's never lost a first-round game under Bruce Pearl.
That's true. And a lot of people kind of thought that there was a chance that we would last year, and then we came out, looked really good, and then looked awful against Miami last year. But we'll see. So yeah, I mean, you kind of already hinted at this, but you think it all is going to kind of come down to how well Iowa shoots the 3?
I do. I think that this is a good scout for Auburn and their coaches. I think this is really a question of knowing the answers to the test before you take the test. Just study them hard. If Auburn can play the level of defense that they have played at points during the year, okay, and remember now, there were early in the year, Auburn did a really good job limiting teams to 3-point percentage. Now, let me say this. Some of that was really good run-out defense, and some of that against LSU and Mississippi State, it just seemed to me like those teams missed a lot of open looks.
Yep.
And I was like, wow, if just 4 or 5 of those wide open threes go down. But I like Auburn having to put the game in the hands of its defense and do something defensively to advance, meaning here's the mission. Should you choose to accept it, you got to keep them under 35% from the 3. You can't let them get runouts, and we have to not go into a freaking shell and absolutely be anemic on offense. If that happens, Auburn's got a good chance. If Iowa comes out and shoots 45% from the 3, there's more than a likelihood Auburn's going to get beat unless Auburn matches it. I mean, there's always the counterpoints. If Iowa shot 45% from 3 and Auburn shot 50% and was on fire and unconscious, that's a difference. But if we take averages and what things normally do through the course of the year and who Auburn is, because you are what you are at this point of the year, although Auburn has been shooting the basketball game from behind the 3-point line significantly better the last 10 games than they did previously.
Tennessee's a 4, then USC, a team that whooped Auburn earlier this year, they're a 10. So just to kind of get some.
So USC was not the last 4 in as far as having to play.
I don't fully understand how that works, but I don't think that's how that works as a 10.
No,
so
you have to be an 11, and you have to be on the back side of 11 to be one of those that has to play in Dayton. I don't know who's playing the play-ins. Maybe you can. The play-in games will be interesting because for us college basketball freaks, the tournament actually starts Tuesday or Wednesday in those play-in games. In Dayton, Ohio.
Folks pointing out that Iowa is good at adjusted offense. So they're on pace to score 120 points per 100 possession is my understanding of how that stat works. We'll see. I mean, we certainly got to see how this team responds to all of that, but they're allowing 74 points per game. And Auburn's going to have to score more than that to beat them.
Yeah, they're not a defensive juggernaut, so that's the good news that Auburn.
All right, the last 4 in are Mississippi State, Pitt, Arizona State, and Nevada. Those were the last 4.
That's dead on with what we've seen. So
the first 4 out: OK State, Rutgers, North Carolina, and Clemson. North Carolina, one of the best basketball programs ever, didn't get in. So if you're an Auburn fan complaining, just there's a lot of perspective that kind of says, nah, you probably shouldn't be feeling that way.
Yeah, I mean there's some blue bloods that are not going dancing, and that's why you should never ever take it for granted. Just get in, and stay away from the play-in game because that's dangerous because you're playing a game and a team that's evenly matched with you allegedly as well, and one and done. at least in this scenario, you're in safely. You're in the big dance. You don't have to play that extra game, and you're a 9 seed, which you were safely in.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you got smoked. Well, not smoked, but you got beat by Arkansas in the first in the first game you played in the SEC tournament, and I don't think Auburn's seed line was affected at all. I think the win over Tennessee jumped Auburn from a 10 to a 9, or maybe an 11 from a 9, and then they were safely in from then on out. Unless they made a run in the SEC tournament, they could have went up a seed line or 2.
All right, here's a fun fact from front of the program, Justin Ferguson. Auburn faced a school record 13 NCAA tournament teams this season, smashing the previous high of 10 in 2021. The Tigers played 6 non-conference opponents that made it: Memphis, West Virginia, Northwestern, USC, Colgate, and Texas Southern, breaking a previous program record of 4. So once again, just talking about Auburn hadn't played anybody. Their strength of schedule stinks. All that's crap, Darrell. The end of the year, when it's all behind us, it's like nothing's as bad as it really seemed like it was.
A lot of conference champions they played. It'd be interesting to see what the strength of schedule ended up being, because that's part of the Ken Palm matrix. It's right there as far as what their strength of schedule is. So I think just on, let's be honest, with the benefit of playing Alabama twice, that's going to raise your strength of schedule. Some of the non-conference games weren't all that terrific as far as Auburn, playing some teams. But look at Memphis now. Look at Northwestern. Those teams ended up being tournament teams. It'd be interesting. Again, I love for people to help contribute to this show. Somebody give us a number of how many teams Auburn is playing, or how many teams Auburn played this year that were in the NCAA tournament.
I just said that. I just read that.
What with Justin Ferguson's thing? I'm sorry.
Auburn faced a school record 13 NCAA tournament teams.
13. I'm sorry. Okay, I got to the part where you said something about the conference.
Yeah, there's a 2-parter there. Yep.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
The 13.
13. Okay.
Most ever.
That's amazing.
It's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
It's pretty impressive. And, I think having, 8 SEC teams made it in, since Mississippi State made it in, right? Vandy did not.
Yeah,
so
that's one of the,
there's talk about that.
8 of those teams are SEC teams, correct.
So I think that's great. And so all this narrative, Auburn's not battle tested and Auburn hadn't played anybody and all that, it's all crap, Darrell. It's just they played more tournament teams this year than they ever have. And so just get out of here with all that stuff. And all of a sudden you're looking at this team with 20 wins. Like you said, they led the SEC in 3-point shooting for the last few games of the regular season. And maybe they can turn it on. They look bad in the SEC tournament, at least in the first half against Arkansas. Maybe they can turn it around. I also think Arkansas is a pretty decent team. I think somebody said that they were an 8 seed. I'll pull up the bracket in a second. We'll kind of go over all of that. But, I think if you play like you did against Arkansas, you probably beat Iowa. I think Arkansas is better than Iowa.
Well, I think what it tells you is at the end of the year, if you play 13 teams that ended up going to the national tournament, the NCAA tournament, you've played a good schedule, and now getting into the tournament, anything could happen. I mean, you've played that. Maybe the reason why Auburn did some of the things they did down the stretch and had some is because they had to play 13 teams that ended up being in the NCAA tournament. Now you have an opportunity to, play. That schedule toughens you up. Now those are the opponents you're going to see. You should be familiar with playing that level of opponent.
That's right.
And I apologize. I want to make sure everyone knows the first part of your question. I do pay attention to what you said. I'm at work. I'm on my work computer, and 3 emails popped up at the exact same time you said that.
Nice.
And I was trying to minimize them, and I didn't want them appearing on the screen or whatever. So
you're good, man.
I apologize. I missed that first part.
You're good. No, we're taking a lot of information right now. That is okay. Tyrone says, I wish BP would be more concerned by basketball other than all external opinions. What are you talking about?
You know what? That has everything to do with what he tweets, and the man can tweet whatever he wants. That has nothing to do with his basketball acumen.
Oh, is that a political thing?
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. I found a bracket from Fox. We're going to use their bracket.
That's sweet.
All
I like
right.
that.
So for folks watching on YouTube right now, Auburn is in the top right. If you missed the reveal show, they're in the top right. So the winner of Auburn and Iowa will take on the winner of Houston and Northern Kentucky. And I did not know Northern Kentucky was a thing until we were watching this a second ago. Then in theory, if Auburn gets to the Sweet 16, which, man, that is a tall task, beating Iowa and Houston, but let's just keep that conversation going. They would eventually meet either Miami, which would be a fun rematch from last year's game, Drake, Indiana, or Kent State. So, I mean, honestly, if you get past Houston, then it's a lot more realistic. And then just kind of round out the Midwest: Iowa State, Mississippi State, Xavier, Kennesaw State, Texas A&M, Penn State, and then Texas, which I think is the worst of the 2 seeds, taking on Colgate, which Auburn played earlier in the year. So what are your thoughts on that, Darrell?
Well, I mean, obviously in the NCAA tournament, you go, it's just win and survive, win in advance, survive in advance, whatever that is. But it would be nice if Auburn can get out of that, get to the Sweet 16 like they've done in the past when they were this particular seed line, and then get that Miami rematch. If Miami was to make it that way, that would be a lot of fun.
That would be fun.
It's just it's so cool to think about potentially down the road. And when you draw up the bracket, that's why this is such a fun time of year. But again, it's also about matchups. So, Auburn will be playing, if they were to beat Iowa and then they were to play Houston and play really well, and for some reason, was to upset Houston, they'd be playing 2 teams right there that didn't, haven't played in a while, or maybe ever haven't seen this year. So that's always fun to draw different people that don't know your tendencies.
Right. Which I don't know who that benefits. Does that benefit Auburn or Iowa in the first round? That you don't know the other person's tendencies.
Yeah, it depends on if you're dynamic in your tendencies. I think if you're a one-trick pony, like Auburn's strength offensively to me is points in the paint. When they get the ball down low and they score in the paint area, and when they're plus 10 or more against their opponent in the paint, they really win a lion's share of their basketball games. They've had to find some different ways to do it in the last 10 games. They've gotten better shooting from the three-point line. But I think the more dynamic you are from an offensive standpoint, as far as sets you run and that kind of stuff, then tendencies matter. To me, I was just like, hey, this is what we are. We're going to live and die with the 3. If you can stop it. If you can't, we're going to beat you. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of, again, that's a good scout. Now, how they get open threes is tendencies. That's important. Do they flex? Do they back cut? Do they off-ball screen? Do they bring their big high to the top of the key and rotate over on the wing? How you get guys open to get open shots are tendencies. And that's what Auburn and Bruce Pearl and Stephen Pearl are going to look like. Remember, Auburn in 2019 shot a ton of threes in transition. They weren't a half-court run sets, get open threes. A lot of their threes were maddening because you're like, you got a 2-on-1, and they would like throw it out behind the 3-point line, and you'd be like, no, and then boom, they'd hit it. So a lot of their threes were in transition. I was not that way. They run sets in the half court to get guys open. And I just happened to watch them 3 times this year. So, that's just luck of the draw that I did.
I think you knew, Darrell. You're that good.
Maybe I was a little Notre-Dame, yeah.
Maybe so. All right. Both Darrell and folks in the live chat, I'll throw this up here again. Looking at that top right part of the bracket, the Midwest. If you had to predict, how far does Auburn make it in the NCAA tournament? Would love to know. Darrell, I think we win on Thursday, and I think Houston beats us. That is my current guess right now. If I was filling out a bracket and putting everything on the line, that's what I would predict.
I agree, and I said on our show after the first round of the first game of the SEC tournament that I would take that right now. I think if you're able to play 2 games in Birmingham with that crowd and push Houston to the brink on the Saturday game and beat Iowa, because we don't know if that Iowa game, look, I'll say it, I don't give a crap what Vegas says or the line or anything like that. if Auburn beats Iowa Thursday, it's not an upset. If Iowa beats Auburn Thursday, it's not really an upset. These are two evenly matched teams. The only thing I would look at is the BPI projection. If it had Auburn winning, 55% chance to win, something like that, that's how you would know who's favored. I'm not concerned about the money line because, again, that I don't know that so much about basketball roster and who's a better basketball team on the floor. So it'll be interesting. I think that either team should feel really good.
We have a line. We've got an opening line on our friends at FanDuel. You want to guess it?
I'm going to say
you're all over.
Auburn 2.
Auburn is Iowa's favored by half a point. So it's a push.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, that's a pick 'em.
Yep. That's a pick 'em. That will move. I bet that moves 2 points in one direction. I don't know which one yet, but I bet it does move.
That's basically, you're talking about almost a home game for Auburn, and Iowa's still a half point favorite. So if that game was in Des Moines, it'd be interesting.
Yeah, you got to think
4, 5, maybe.
Yeah. And Auburn's been okay. I mean, Auburn's been decent in neutral site. I mean, we've talked about that before. Now, obviously, coming off a tournament loss, like that doesn't really help that case. But let's not act like they've been awful in neutral site.
Well, in Birmingham, Legacy Arena is not a ballroom, like we had some people point out. So that may hurt us a little bit. We're not able to play in that ballroom. But Legacy Arena, an arena that I can't remember. I think Auburn played UAB there a couple years ago. It's been a while since they played in Legacy Arena.
Yeah. I don't know. I love the fact that it's going to be a bunch of Auburn and Alabama people there.
It's going to get interesting. I mean, from a standpoint of heated arguments and takes and controversy and a lot that's going on. I mean, let's hope that everyone conducts themselves and handles themselves well, and we represent the state of Alabama because, again, unprecedented. Could you imagine North Carolina and Duke getting sent to the same city for the first round?
Oh, we just learned another detail.
Okay.
Tip is Thursday at noon Eastern, 11 Central.
Okay.
That is too early to be doing anything.
Well, I'm glad I'm off that. I'm glad I took off that day with the per chance that game was going to be in Birmingham.
Yep. Okay, and Timothy's saying it's noon according to Vivid Seats, so I bet that's Eastern time. So, yeah. 11 o'clock tip Central Time, Birmingham time. That's early. That's early. I don't know if that impacts anything, but like you're just not used to playing basketball games at 11 o'clock in the morning. But that's another factor. We'll see who adjusts.
And the good thing is it's 11 o'clock in the morning for Iowa too. So it's both teams. Now, if Iowa was coming from the East and that extra out, who knows? I mean, where that makes a difference is when they ship a team from the Eastern time zone all the way out to the West Coast. That can make a difference. And vice versa.
That's right. Oh, man, this is so fun. I still can't believe they're going to Birmingham. I know I've said that like 10 times, but that's just so stinking fun. And it really sets up for a really cool environment if they beat Iowa. And like just the support that would flock to Birmingham even more so, because that'd be on the weekend, right? More people can make that.
Game. Yeah.
Against Houston. Like, holy cow, like that would be a really, really cool thing. But you got to get there. You got to get there first.
Yeah, you got to win that first game at 11 a.m. And then at that point, again, I want to echo, if you have an opportunity to buy tickets on the secondary market, go, because you don't have that much of an opportunity to see your favorite college basketball team play an hour and a half away.
War Eagle Wyoming says we were going to play in the Holiday Inn ballroom, but Hoover has their prom that same day.
He is incorrect. I checked. It was Spain Park. Yeah, it's Spain Park, dude. Come on now. No, I know. Yeah, the Hoover ballroom. I'd have taken the Hoover ballroom.
Yeah, really. That's hilarious. All right. Yeah, put those predictions in. I saw a few people say 1-1. Does anybody think Auburn loses to Iowa, or does anybody think Auburn could potentially beat Houston? Would love y'all's thoughts on that. Then we'll wrap up this Henry's Service Company Selection Sunday special in a moment. But it's going to come down to Auburn's guards. I mean, I think how we talk about these games is how we talked about Auburn going into the SEC tournament. If they were going to go on a run late in the season, like it comes down to, can you take care of the basketball? Can you make smart decisions consistently over a 40-minute span? And I'm just not always sold that this team can do that. But there's more on the line. A lot of this team clearly really likes each other. And, we saw what they did when their backs were against the wall on senior day and what they did for the seniors and the guys who are going to be playing their last home games in Neville Arena. Maybe they all pull it together and they do it one more time. We'll see. But it's just, you got the feeling, Darrell, if they win on Thursday, all this crap about this season not being a success goes away. Because you can't say that Auburn's having a bad year and they win a tournament game. You can't say it.
I agree. I think Auburn has looked probably its best when they're the most desperate. You would think that a one and done scenario in an SEC tournament, you would be desperate, but no, because Auburn knew they were in the NCAA tournament and they knew they were going to have another game. But the Missouri game, which now looks like Auburn's best win in hindsight, especially the way they did it, the Tennessee game where they absolutely had to have it, even the Ole Miss game. Right. Look, we joked and laughed about that game and said, God, Ole Miss, look how well Ole Miss played down the stretch when Kermit Davis left and they played some teams off their feet, including Missouri at the last game of the regular season. So I think Auburn's played their best when they're the most desperate, when they feel like there's no tomorrow. The SEC tournament was not that scenario. Auburn knew they had another game to play. So let's see how this all shakes out Thursday.
Yep. That's right. That's right. James saying, I think this team wants to prove the naysayers wrong. There's no doubt about it. I mean, Zepp kept bringing that up when the most recent interview that we had, where he would talk about that. So there's no question that's definitely an element in all of this. So Integrity Sports Podcast says what we're all thinking. Thanks to Henry Service Company for sponsoring this show throughout the year. Their interactive exchange is a fun platform. No doubt. Be sure to reach out to Henry Service Company. They can fix anything. They fixed Auburn's season. When everybody was saying Auburn was an NIT team, what happened? We all called Henry's collectively, and they fixed the season. Now Auburn's a 9 seed, and they're going to get to play in Birmingham with a chance to play, one of the best teams in college basketball if they can win against the Houston Cougars. So there's so much fun things that happen, and we're going to give Henry's all the credit. 334-288-2700, Alabama license number 00021. Darrell, any closing remarks from you today?
Best that we could hope for. I mean, I'm just being honest. A 9 seed, not a 10 seed, not an 11 seed, a 9 seed in Birmingham. If you're an Auburn fan, you should be very happy, very excited, very thankful right now. I like the matchup as well. It's right there, for Auburn to take if they can take care of business on the defensive end. So it's a great day, and it's something that I hope people, don't get too comfortable getting used to or take for granted. Get used to it, because that's the expectation should be every year, but never take it for granted.
Brady R with a super specific but very realistic scenario. Auburn comes out flat and down by 13 in the second. They fight back and take the lead inside 2 minutes. Crowd going crazy. Then we go cold and lose by 5. Man, Brady. It's like we've seen that before or something.
Well, but we haven't seen that before in a home court scenario. Every one of those where Auburn fought all the way back to take the lead within a minute to lose the lead was on the road. Alabama, Texas A&M, the SEC tournament.
Yeah, game. Nashville, right.
Nashville. The other one I was thinking, West Virginia. So, at home, they got blown out by A&M, and then the Alabama game was close, but they didn't get it within, they weren't winning under a minute. So let's see what happens with the raucous pro-Auburn crowd in Birmingham and see how that falls out.
All right, so we got Alabama as a 1 seed, West Virginia as a 9 seed. I'm just looking at the teams that Auburn's played this year. Missouri's a 7. Memphis is an 8. We mentioned that. Tennessee's a 4. We mentioned that. Kentucky is in a 6. USC's a 10. I don't know. None of these really surprised me. Arkansas is, I can't see that. Is that a 6? Yeah. So, I mean, I don't think I see very little controversy about all of this. I saw a few people chirping about Oklahoma State not getting in, but I think it was more just them being upset that they didn't get in.
I'll say this too: if I'm a Texas A&M fan for the second year in a row, I feel like the selection committee disrespected me.
They were disrespected all year, to be fair, and they really had a chance. They really had a chance to put the nail in the coffin on all that today, and they just didn't do it.
So. I just saw a majority of the projections I saw for A&M was a 5 or a 6 seed, and they end up getting a 7. So,
right. AU for Life says, I'm naming my firstborn Henry after Henry Service Company. Warrior, Wyoming says that kid will fix everything. I think that's true.
He will. That's true. Plays over there burning some incense to try to get Auburn and Birmingham at work.
He did it. I think that's all on him. All right. Darrell will be joining me on tomorrow's edition of Locked on Auburn. So be sure to check that out. We're going to talk some football, but of course, we'll also continue talking about Auburn and their trip to Birmingham for the NCAA tournament. Darrell, how can people give you some love, brother?
Dap6410. Follow me on Twitter. I'll be on tomorrow morning with Ben Taylor at 7:10 on WANI Auburn Open like this morning. Doug Amos, 1:35, the Max Roundtable. And my man, Z Black, Locked on Auburn tomorrow. So it's going to be a fun, full day.
Let's go. You can find all of our written work at auburndaily.com. And please subscribe to the channel. Click that like button, and a video of Darrell punching a monitor is coming very, very soon because we hit 10K subs. We'll see you tomorrow. This has been Locked on Auburn.